Hey folks, pull up a chair and let me tell you about the summer our quiet little slice of paradise at Cedar Cove Lakeside turned into a full-blown HOA battlefield. You know the type of place. Neat rows of craftsman homes with white picket fences, kids riding bikes on perfectly paved streets, and every lawn edged like it was auditioning for a magazine cover. On the surface, it looked like the American dream. Friendly barbecues, weekend boat parades on the lake, everyone waving hello like they actually meant it. But underneath, it was a pressure cooker of rules, clipboards, and people who got off on telling their neighbors how to live. And right in the middle of it all was my neighbor Ethan Riley, a quiet guy fresh off inheriting his grandpa's old lakefront cabin, and the self-appointed queen of control, Sharon Whitaker. Ethan wasn't the flashy type. Ex-Army, mid-40s, kept to himself mostly. After his grandpa passed, he moved into that little cedar-shingled cabin tucked into the cove. The place had been in the family since the 70s, long before anyone dreamed up an HOA here. Grandpa had built the dock by hand, stacked the stone wall along the shore, even planted those pines that now shaded the whole spot. Ethan would sit out there some evenings, just staring at the water like he was having a conversation with the old man. You could tell it meant everything to him. Not just dirt and water, but memories. Legacy. The kind of thing you don't put a price tag on. Sharon, though? She lived up the hill in the newest McMansion, the one with the 3-car garage and the community first bumper sticker she probably bought at the same time as her measuring tape. She'd taken over the HOA board faster than you could say property values. Folks called her the enforcer behind her back, always patrolling with that clipboard like it was a sword, sunglasses perched on her head even at night, ponytail so tight it looked painful. She loved that phrase, "We're just protecting the community." Said it with this fake sweet smile while she fined people for grass half an inch too long or a boat left out overnight. It wasn't about rules for her. It was power. Pure, delicious control. And when Ethan showed up and politely ignored her first welcome letter demanding he register his legacy lot, well, the war was on. It started small, the way these things always do. A polite envelope in his mailbox. Notice of noncompliance. Shoreline usage requires HOA permit. Ethan read it once, chuckled, and tossed it in the recycle bin. He knew the deed. His property predated the HOA by decades. No jurisdiction, no obligations. But Sharon didn't like being ignored. A week later, she showed up in person, striding down the gravel path in her pressed khakis like she owned the shoreline. "Mr. Riley," she called out, voice clipped and professional. "We expect compliance from everyone. Even special cases like yours." Ethan was down by the dock tightening a rope when she arrived. He stood up slow, wiping his hands on his jeans, and gave her that calm stare veterans get when they've seen real trouble. "Morning, Sharon. Something I can help with." She pulled out her tape measure like it was Exhibit A in court. "Your dock extension here, 3 inches over the community buffer zone. And that tent, camping on regulated waterfront without approval. We'll need you to file the forms today." Ethan glanced at the water, then back at her. The lake was glass still, reflecting the pines. "This isn't regulated waterfront," he said evenly. "It's my land. Deed says so. Grandpa bought it cash before your HOA even existed." Sharon's smile didn't waver, but her eyes narrowed behind those sunglasses. "All lake-adjacent properties fall under our oversight now. It's about maintaining order. Property values, you understand." She stepped closer, right onto the rocks he'd stacked himself. Ethan didn't raise his voice, just tilted his head. "Ma'am, the only thing unauthorized here is your foot on my property line. You might want to step back before you measure something you can't afford." She huffed, spun on her heel, and marched off muttering about non-compliant residents. But that was just the warm-up. The fines started rolling in next, fake ones, printed on fancy letterhead. Unauthorized watercraft. Improper shoreline maintenance. Each one bolder than the last, like she was testing how far she could push before he cracked. Neighbors started whispering. You'd see folks at the mailbox cluster suddenly go quiet when Ethan walked by. One guy even crossed the street like Ethan had the plague. It was classic HOA poison, Sharon planting seeds that he was that veteran who thinks he's above the rules. Ethan felt it. You could see it in the way his shoulders tightened when he walked to his truck. But he didn't snap. Not yet. He just watched. And waited. Because that's what smart people do when the bullies come knocking. The petty stuff kept coming, folks. Sharon wasn't done. She started sending her little volunteer spies, retired ladies in matching visors who'd stroll past Ethan's cove pretending to birdwatch while snapping photos on their phones. For the records, they'd say if he asked. One afternoon, he caught one zooming in on his old folding chair, the one Grandpa used to sit in every sunrise. Ethan just waved. Smile for the camera, ladies. Tell Sharon I said hi. They scurried off like scared rabbits. But the notes kept appearing. Tucked under his wiper blade. Warning, unauthorized campsite pending fines. Laminated and zip-tied to his fence post. Shoreline disturbance in progress. It was laughable if it wasn't so damn invasive. The whole neighborhood was turning into a surveillance state, all in the name of harmony. Sharon loved preaching at board meetings about how we're all in this together. Yeah, right. Together under her thumb. Ethan started feeling the weight heavier each day. Mornings he'd walk the shore, boots crunching pine needles, and remember Grandpa's voice. The lake remembers who respects it, son. Don't let anyone rewrite its story. Those words hit different now. This wasn't just about a patch of land. It was the last piece of the man who raised him. Ethan could almost smell the cocoa Grandpa used to make on cool mornings, hear the creak of those dock boards under their weight. Losing even an inch to Sharon's ego felt like letting the old man down. Financially, it stung too. The taxes, the upkeep, the storm repairs he'd budgeted for. But paying one dime to her HOA? Hell no. And the community angle? A few brave souls started slipping him quiet nods at the store. Hang in there, one whispered. She's been suffocating us for years. Their hope was a quiet pressure on Ethan's shoulders. He carried it without complaint. But inside, the anger was building, slow and steady like the lake after a storm. By now the harassment had roots. Drones buzzing overhead while he grilled dinner. Golf cart patrols shining flashlights at his windows after dark. Sharon even tried the old erosion inspection excuse, showing up with her tape measure again, stepping right over his boundary markers. This isn't up to code, she announced, ignoring the private property sign he'd posted. Ethan crossed his arms. Code for what, Sharon? Your personal kingdom? Last I checked, my deed doesn't mention your clipboard. She laughed that tight little laugh. Everyone complies eventually. It keeps things orderly. Ethan smiled back, cold. Orderly for you, maybe. For the rest of us, it just feels like a cage with better landscaping. She left fuming, but you could see it in her eyes. She was escalating. The gloves were off. That's when the rumors really took flight. Someone started a thread in the community Facebook group, anonymous, of course, about suspicious activity at the old Riley cabin. Is he even allowed to camp there full-time? Heard he's unstable. Army background, you know. Sharon never posted directly. She just liked the comments and added vague community safety reminders. Ethan saw neighbors avoid his gaze at the dock ramp. It hurt. Not the lies themselves, but how easily people bought them. One night he sat by the fire, the flames crackling, lake lapping softly, and wondered if keeping Grandpa's promise was worth the isolation. The wind picked up then, carrying that familiar cedar scent, and he knew the answer. No surrender. Not to her. Not ever. But Ethan wasn't just taking it. He'd been watching too. Quietly. Methodically. That's the army in him. Patience as a weapon. He started noting every visit, every drone pass, every fake citation. And then came the turning point nobody saw coming. One humid afternoon, while clearing brush, Ethan found an envelope tucked under his doormat. No stamp. Hand-delivered. Inside, a printed screenshot of an old HOA boundary map, except someone had digitally altered it to swallow his entire cove. Attached was a note. She's doing this for a marina deal. Check her house too. No signature. But Ethan didn't need one. He knew. That night he installed the first trail cam, hidden in the pines overlooking the shore. Two more followed, dock view and road approach. Blended perfect, motion triggered. The lake seemed to approve, ripples settling like it was holding its breath with him. Within days the footage rolled in. Sharon, clipboard in hand, stepping over his stakes again and again. But the real bomb? One clip showed her down by the water at dusk, phone out, talking to some slick guy in a suit. The Riley parcel is key, she was saying. Once it's under HOA control, we push the rezoning. My cut on the marina slips will set us up. Clear as day. Greed, pure and simple. And then the kicker. Another angle caught her own backyard. That fancy boat dock extension she'd never permitted, the one she fined old Mrs. Langley for having a similar setup last year. Hypocrisy on full display. Ethan watched the clips on his laptop, the glow lighting his face. Well, Grandpa, he muttered to the empty cabin. Looks like the lake just handed me the map. He didn't rush. He copied everything, backed it up, even printed stills. The twist hit him like fresh air after a long dive. He wasn't the only one she'd been playing. She was building her empire on everyone's backs, including her own rules. The drama was about to flip. Neighbors who once avoided him started getting anonymous tips too. The board president, a mild guy named Paul, got a copy of the marina chat. Whispers turned to murmurs. Sharon's perfect little world was cracking, and she had no idea the man she'd been bullying had the receipts. The tension thickened like fog off the lake. Sharon doubled down. More patrols, louder Facebook posts about protecting our shoreline from outsiders. Ethan stayed silent, smiling, waiting for the perfect moment. Because when you've got the evidence, you don't swing early. You let them walk right into the trap. And walk she did. Straight into the biggest mistake of her life. It was a clear Friday night, moon hanging fat and silver over the cove. Ethan had his tent up for the weekend, small fire popping, coffee steaming in Grandpa's old mug. The air smelled of pine and smoke, the kind of peaceful that makes you forget the world's petty games. Then came the crunch of footsteps, deliberate, angry. Sharon marched into the clearing like she owned the night, phone already recording, tape measure dangling from her belt like a holstered gun. There he is, she announced to her camera, voice pitched for drama. Unauthorized camping, open flame during burn ban season, illegal shoreline occupation. I'm documenting for the board. Ethan didn't stand. Just sipped his coffee and hit record on his own phone. Evening, Sharon. Come to measure something that doesn't belong to you again. She stepped closer, right onto his rocks, flashlight beam cutting the dark. You've ignored every notice. This ends tonight. I'm calling authorities. Ethan raised an eyebrow. On my private land? Bold choice. The lake's watching, you know. She ignored him, dialed. 911, what's your emergency? Yes, there's a hostile individual camping illegally on community property. He's refusing to leave. I feel threatened. She paced the shoreline, narrating every innocent detail like it was a crime scene. His tent, the dock, even the fire. Ethan stayed calm. Tell them the truth, Sharon. Private property. Deed on file. You're the one trespassing. She covered the mic, hissed at him. Stop interfering. Then back on. He's confrontational. Send someone now. The dispatcher asked questions. Sharon puffed up. I'm an HOA board member enforcing regulations. Click. She hung up with a triumphant smirk. They'll be here soon. You'll learn respect. Ethan just smiled wider. Respect goes both ways. Especially when the cameras are rolling, yours and mine. Her face twitched. She hadn't noticed his phone, or the trail cams blinking red in the trees. The patrol boat engine hummed in the distance, lights flashing blue across the water. Sharon straightened her ponytail, ready for her big moment. Little did she know, the moment was about to belong to Ethan. The boat cut through the silver water, spotlights sweeping like a slow blade. Two deputies stepped off onto the dock, boots thudding solid. Sharon rushed forward, waving her phone. Officers. He's the violator. Camping, structures, everything. Remove him immediately. The lead deputy, a tall guy with a no-nonsense jaw, glanced around. Ma'am, slow down. Let's establish location first. He turned to Ethan. This your property, sir? Ethan handed over the folded deed and plat map, yellowed but ironclad. Yes. Family since '72. Outside HOA boundaries. Sharon scoffed. Those maps are outdated. Our updated bylaws cover all shoreline. The deputy studied the papers under his flashlight, then the boundary stakes Ethan had driven in weeks ago. These lines are county filed. Predate your association by decades. No jurisdiction here. Sharon's voice rose. But he's endangering the area. Open fire, unpermitted structures. Look at my documentation. She thrust her stack forward. The deputy didn't take it. HOA citations aren't criminal, ma'am. And you're standing on his land right now. Her mouth opened, closed. I was inspecting. Ethan played the first trail cam clip on his phone, Sharon stepping over stakes, measuring, talking marina deals. The deputy watched, expression hardening. Interesting. You're on camera multiple times. Trespassing. And this conversation about rezoning for personal profit. Sharon's face drained white. That's out of context. Second deputy checked her phone, still recording. Ma'am, you filed a false emergency report, claiming threats, illegal activity on land you have zero authority over. That's a crime. Sharon staggered back. I was protecting the community. Property values. The first deputy shook his head. You were protecting your wallet. Step off the property. You're being cited, trespassing, false report, harassment. Paul, the HOA president, came jogging down the path right then, summoned by Sharon's earlier text. He saw the footage playing, saw the citations. Sharon, what the hell? She turned on him. Tell them I was following protocol. Paul looked tired. I warned you to drop this. The board saw the marina emails. You're done. The vote came 2 days later, unanimous removal. Sharon stood at the meeting, clutching her purse, voice cracking. I only wanted order. Nobody clapped. They just moved on. The fines against Ethan? Retracted in a formal letter admitting unauthorized actions. Word spread like wildfire. Neighbors who'd crossed the street now brought casseroles and apologies. We should have stood up sooner, they said. The lake felt lighter. Kids skipping rocks again. Boats tying up without fear. Laughter echoing where drones once buzzed. Ethan repaired the dock one quiet sunrise, hammer ringing steady, Grandpa's old flag fluttering at the end. He sat with feet in the water, lantern glowing gold on the surface. The fight was never about winning. It was about protecting what matters. Standing ground when the bullies come with clipboards and lies. And that, folks, is how one man's patience and a few well-placed cameras brought down the queen of Cedar Cove. Sharon sold her McMansion 6 months later and moved away. Last I heard, she's on some inland HOA board somewhere, probably measuring lawns again. But here, the Cove is peaceful. Real peaceful. If you've got your own HOA nightmare, drop it in the comments. We've all been there. And remember, sometimes the lake fights back. Justice just needed the right evidence to float it home.